means something.
Back.
Betty's in the valley looking for the next best scent.
Hi everyone, in case you didn't already know, we have launched fragrance oils at Black Tie Barn. We have been working on this for quite a while now, 6 months or so, if not longer. It's been planned for years, but we finally put it into action here in mid-2023. So we thought we'd put a video together just talking about that first launch, how it went, kind of the process behind it, and tell you a little bit about the oils and what's to come. And we also have plans in future videos to talk more specifically about each of our fragrance oils, a little bit behind the scenes, talk more specifically about the notes in each one of these fragrance oils, and that way you can guys get a little bit more insight into each one. So with that being said, we thought we'd start with what makes our fragrances different or special, or like why do we think that they're great? I'll let you start.
The complexity. Go out into the elements and experience what we want the fragrance oils to smell like, but then we put a unique take on it to complement the fragrance oil, but also add something that you wouldn't necessarily expect to go with that oil itself. An example, you're not just going to get apple. You're going to get something that is
more interesting,
a more complex. You can, when you smell it from the bottle, you're getting different notes versus just what you think an apple should smell like.
Right. As candle makers ourselves, we want something that is unique, stands out, something that we know we would use. And I think that's, to me, what makes our line so special, is that we make products with these oils. So we're not going to release something that we don't think other people would like as well. So it's that personal connection. It's not just a fragrance oil. We know it's going into a finished product. So we want it to be impactful. We want it to be unique. But we, of course, will carry some staples as well. There are classic fragrances that everyone needs to carry. So we won't stray away from some of those classics that everyone likes, but we will definitely have our own twist on several fragrances. Twisted Pumpkin, for example, is one of those, but we have several oils like that. And we'll talk about more of those in future videos. But yeah, that's what makes it unique to me, special to me, is the personal connection, that we embrace the actual notes and the products that we would use ourselves. So yeah, so speaking of, these different types of fragrances that we have, just some examples from some of these major categories. We carry earthy, to back up, we started with 23 fragrances out of the gate, and we're going to be adding more and more, of course, as time goes on. And in those 23, we had several categories covered. We have your earthy fragrances, which I would say is like Graveyard. We have sweet fragrances like Banana Bundt Cake and White Velvet. We've got some of your unique fragrances like Twisted Pumpkin, Graveyard, Dark Dahlia, Bandit and Mob, some of those. A lot of luxurious fragrances and also some classics. And we're covering all these different categories: florals, sweet, earthy, aromatic, all of those. So that's our goal, is to cover all of these major appetites, so to speak, for what candle makers are looking for and what customers are ultimately looking for as well. And speaking of first fragrance, the very first fragrance, if you're curious, that we developed was Graveyard. And that was actually specifically made for Carrie. We were already doing some collaborations, some work, and if you recall back to an earlier video where we toured part of, she had me, kind of took me on a tour through Charleston, and we, what was the? Circular Graveyard. And she has in her own line fragrances that reflect these different destinations. And after that video and after that collaboration, we were meeting for another collaboration, and I stopped to basically work to get Graveyard developed, knowing that it would be something she would like, and it was sort of a first trial run. So not only is it our first ever fragrance, really, as part of our fragrance line, it's also one of my favorites.
Yes.
It's very, it's simple but complex. Like there's not a lot of notes in it, but it's how the notes work together. It's very earthy, and I don't really know how to describe it.
When you first smell it, you get dirt and grass. I don't know how else to kind of explain it, but the more that you smell it, you kind of go through the complexity of it. And when it burns in a candle, it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's aromatic and earthy, a little bit of musky, a little bit of that old kind of dirt and grass kind of. It's a little haunting. It's a really, really good fragrance.
It's ominous,
Yeah.
I guess,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a good addition to anything that you wanted to. I think someone has already mentioned in the group adding it to the pier.
Yeah, so we're already getting some scent combination suggestions in the Facebook group, which that is linked below if you want to check that out. And we're going to talk a little bit more about customer suggestions here in a few minutes. But yeah, we just wanted to let you know the very first fragrance part of this launch was Graveyard. And it was actually developed several months before any other was. So it was out of the gate, first kind of pilot fragrance oil. And it's definitely stuck. Graveyard is an example of one of those original kind of unique different fragrances, but we also will do and already have some duplications of or replications of very common popular fragrances, whether they're from other suppliers or other well-known candle brands. But we try to do it at some of our replications or duplications are fragrances that a lot of people love, but they're hard to get because of the price point. And so we have found a way through this development to bring that price point down on some of these luxury fragrances that normally cost $70 or more a pound. And ours, for those same exact duplications, are $30 to $35 a pound. So less than half of the original cost. So part of this process, part of our line going forward is going to be originals and duplications. And then some will be inspirations provided by you all and other candle makers.
You might be wondering how we brainstorm and come up with new fragrances to launch. Actually, yesterday, we sat around with a few of our long-term scents, staples from you back in the day, and some new ones, and kind of put the bottles side by side, and we blindly smell them, and then we both go 1, 2, 3, yes or no, and from there, we'll get each other's opinion on that, and then build on that. Well, what if you mix amber with this and so forth, and then we kind of write it down and see what we like, whether we want to go with just that or go a little wild and add something else. It's a process of building off of the other one.
It's very much like a verbal whiteboard. So we literally it's very relaxed and casual at first. We will just grab inspiration from anything. And in this case, like yesterday, it was inspiration from fragrance oils that we've been using for years, ones that we know we like already. And then we just decide, do we want to add something to it? Do we like it the way it is? What would we change about it if we could? And then other times it is in the elements. So we'll be out exploring on some of these road trips. We take inspiration from a place we're at. Like, man, we need a fragrance that smells like the Circular Graveyard. We need something that smells like East State Penitentiary or something like that. So we take inspiration in many different ways, but the brainstorming and ideation process really is just open exploring, throwing things out and seeing what sticks. And then it becomes more technical as time goes on. And that's where we're getting into the testing and selection process. So at first it's just brainstorming. That's it. And yeah, the yes and no's is basically we're just trying to find out right off the bat, is there something we both like? If so, that's a possibility. If neither one of us don't like something, it's out the window. We don't think about it again. And a lot of times we'll disagree on stuff, and we're like, well, how can we don't have to both agree for it to be included into a line, but it allows you to have different perspectives, and so we can end up with different mixing blends. So once we have an idea of what we've brainstormed, then we start going through the tweaking process. So we will start with whatever our original idea was. If we like it and it's a winner, then we test it in product. If we don't, then we will go back to the drawing board and what can we remove? What can we add? Do we need to add something more? Do we need to pull something back a little bit? Do we need to scratch and start all over? That selection process really is the most time-consuming part. Not only we keep tweaking as we go, but then once we think we have it right, we have to test in product. And for those of you wondering, we test in a variety of product, but we mostly test, at least out of the gate, in a 50-50 soy blend, because it's a very popular blend. And if it works well in a kind of average wax, then that gives you a good idea of how it's going to perform across the board. So we find that to be the safest, most effective way to test and select. So after we have selected, tested, and decided to move forward with the fragrance, then for me, the additional fun part comes in, and that's with the naming and choosing the images that we use. How do we want to portray the new fragrance oil to you all? Because it's not just a list of 25 notes. We want to give it a name. The Graveyard, the Pier, the Velvet Brew,
The Bandit,
the Mob, the Dark Dahlia. That's a really fun process because we have a lot of similarities on how we like to name things and how we see things, and we have a lot of tastes that are similar. So we end up with a lot of ideas here, and the harder part is like picking one, I think.
Yeah, it's fun because when you have a fragrance, let's go with the Bandit. It is leather, it's musk, it's what I picture is
Brandy.
and a saloon back in the day. Some guys just coming in, drawing, and it's feisty. It's a feeling, it's imagery, and then we kind of talk about what we would name it. We came up with the Bandit.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Mob. The Mob is more high class, upscale, and what that would look like on a person or people.
Yeah.
And that's the fun part.
It's the name and the images. They have to pair well together.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are easy. Like Graveyard is very easy because we knew exactly what we're looking for. We already had the name ready. Others, it's like, all right, we really love this, but what the heck do we call it?
I love the Devil's Candy.
Devil's Candy. It's really, it's a red hot cinnamon, fiery type of fragrance, but we're not going to call it cinnamon. We're not going to call it red hot. We're going to give it that extra twist because it's more, it's something unique. You're selling, you're not just using a fragrance oil. You're using something that's going in a finished product. So you want to get inspiration behind what went into that oil. What were we thinking when we created this oil? And that might give you more inspiration on how to use it as well. Plus, it's just more fun.
It is.
That's, Twisted Pumpkin was one that we struggled with a lot. Yeah. And for anyone curious, you can look it up on the website, but it's basically a pumpkin with black licorice fragrance, which you might be thinking like that doesn't sound good at all, but it's really, really good. And it's even better when it's burning. It's a great combination. And so, do we just call it pumpkin licorice? Because that doesn't sound crazy appealing, right? So we just think of unique ways to make it seem interesting and then pair images to go along with it. The images were a lot of fun, a lot of work to do. If you haven't checked them out, just go to blacktiebarn.com and click on fragrance oils. You can see everything we have so far. But we tried to stay on brand. We tried to be consistent with the look of the products, the names themselves. You'll notice that everything starts with the. So the Graveyard, the Bandit, the Pier, the Velvet Brew. And it's just something we chose to stand out a little bit, brand awareness, which is something I talk about on the channel all the time for candle makers, is you want to have some brand identity. You want to have something that when someone sees your product, they know it's yours. And so it's a small little thing, but it makes a difference. And I think it really ties everything in nicely together. You can see that we chose black bottles, which is not very common in the industry. A lot of amber bottles, white bottles, clear bottles. We went with black because it's very much on brand for us. Mm-hmm. We of course designed our own labels, which are again black and white. Everything we did was with purpose, and we're hoping you all enjoy that as well and notice that.
I wanted to take a quick minute to tell you about these label tools from Norden Candle Supply. If you've seen my previous videos, you've probably seen me showing off their wicking tools, which are second to none. But they recently released a little gadget called the Candle Labeler as well to help you apply labels straight, even, and with consistency, jar to jar. I actually decided to use them when labeling our fragrance bottles. So even when labeling hundreds of bottles, the process ended up being very quick and easy. Now, admittedly, at first I was not too sure about them. They worked, but it was a bit odd to use and kind of slowed me down a bit, to be honest. But honestly, I just wasn't using it correctly. Because after using it for a bit, I was really rolling with them. Simply apply the label to the candle labeler. It lines up on the groove that best fits your jar or bottle. Then simply press in the middle to make it stick, pull away, and finish pressing the label down. Now, this is not a label applicator, but more of like a label guide or tool. It's very simple, it's very consistent. And while it may not find the dead center of every size or shape of jar, it will cover most of them, and it covered most of mine. And like all their products, you can get it in the color of your choice, which is awesome. So if you want to check it out, I'll leave a link to it below in the video details. All right, and now we'll get back to the oils.
I guess the next thing we should talk about is the sizes we offer and the kind of the price range of our oils and how we got there. So if you want to talk about the sizes.
Yeah, so for the sizes, the 2 ounce, we wanted to make sure that you as makers could actually test with it and test in a candle and a wax melt. You're not just getting a tiny amount where you can basically just smell it. So the 2 ounces are great for you if you just want to just sample a bunch and test with it as it goes. You like it, and then you move up to 8 ounce and then a pound. We feel like that offers enough variety for makers to kind of see what they like, be able to test with it, and then from there jump to your 8 ounce and then a pound if you're ready to go.
Yeah. At some point we'll offer larger than that too. Being a brand new candle line, it just takes some time, but we obviously, the larger size you buy, there is price discounts on the larger bottles. We will probably at some point run kind of specials where we might have 1 ounce and 4 ounce bottles on certain fragrances. That's nothing planned right now. It just we do have those bottles already, so we might use those for special one-off sales or promotions. But yeah, 2 ounce, 8 ounce, and 1 pound are our standard sizes at the moment. The price range. So we are kind of nestled nicely in between kind of your lower end price range and then your upper price range. We're nowhere near that upper price range. We're $60, $70 a pound and higher. Ours ranged on average between $25 and $31 a pound. That's the average. There's some that tick a little bit higher than that, and then there's some that's right at the bottom there, the 25. And the reason for the variation, which many of you probably already know, is certain fragrance oils, just like certain candles and products, cost more to make. They're all using natural ingredients. Some have different kinds of raw materials in them that just cost more than others. And so there's really no way to get around that. If you make some of those oils, try to make those cheaper, they're not going to perform very well. You're using knockoff raw materials essentially. So yeah, that's why the price range varies. But typically the complexity of our fragrance oils, the type of fragrance oils we have, many of our luxury oils, you're going to typically pay over $50 a pound. And ours, again, are in that $25 to $32 range. So I think we're priced very fairly. And yeah, we would love your feedback on everything about the images, the fragrances, how they test. Anytime you want to leave any feedback, you can post in the Facebook group. You can send us an email. Of course, if you purchase fragrance oils, you'll get an option to just leave a review. 4 or 5 stars really help us out. So any of you guys want to do that in the future, that's a great bonus. And then I guess you want to mention anything about a little bit more about what we plan to do for future videos.
Yeah, so for our future videos, we decided that once a week, haven't come up with that day yet, we're going to introduce...
Well, once a week's plan. I don't know when it's going to start or how well we'll stick to that, but that would be our goal. I try to do videos more often than we do too, so
once a week,
we'll do our
definitely
best.
Try to release videos that talk about either one oil or maybe 2 at a time. Give you some backstory into it. I kind of introduce it to you so that you feel better about going. You can pick it through imagery alone on the website. You can also pick it through the notes that are described. But when you get the backstory and kind of how we came up with it, I think it'll give you a better idea of that oil itself. And it's just good to know. Yeah,
they're going to be interesting. These aren't going to be your standard kind of fragrance review videos where we just kind of sit, open the bottle, and tell you if we like it or not, because we made all these, so we know we like them.
Like it.
But it's more about why and how we came up with that fragrance, why we chose to go forward with it, our thoughts. I'll like some better than Carrie will, and vice versa. How we chose the name, the imagery, and everything. So it'll be fun, and they won't be super long videos or anything, but I think they'll be interesting, and hopefully that gives you a little bit more insight, helps kind of guide your future decision making, but also just appreciate you guys supporting the channel and watching them. It's good to engage with you on any of the products, any of the videos that we talk about. In fact, I guess last thing we'll mention regarding engagement is customer suggestions and candle maker suggestions. So if you all think of fragrances that you would like that we should carry, or ideas of ones that you just think would be great for anyone to carry but you haven't found yet, let us know. I don't know the exact way I'm going to have that set up for you to submit those suggestions yet, but you can check in the link or the description of this video. I'll have an option listed. So it may be some kind of form, or it could be just on the website, a contact will shoot us an email with your suggestion. But we're open to suggestions. So we can't obviously guarantee any kind of timeline, but we look forward to your ideas. We talked about earlier about all the ways we get inspiration, exploring, sampling other fragrance oils, and then a lot of the inspiration is going to come from all of you. So any ideas, things to mix, things that we don't carry but you wish we already did, things like that. That will really help us out, and we'll try to release updates maybe weekly when we do the videos or in a newsletter or something, letting you know what we're working on and what's coming down the pipeline. Do you have anything else to add? What's been your favorite thing about working on the fragrance oil so far?
I honestly I love the testing. That's a little annoying at times. But I prefer trying to think outside of the box. That's kind of my wheelhouse. And sometimes it's super rogue and he's like, yeah, calm down a little bit. So we can play off of each other's ideas. And yesterday we had one that he was just, he could not get past, but I was like, that's your nose. That's not their nose or my nose. And I just like coming up with the different off the wall things that may hit or may not. And then after that, the feel and the emotion of it, and then it goes into the name. So I just like the creative process from the actual elements. Like when we went to Eastern State Penitentiary and just smelling that whole process to me is fun. The testing is fun too because we can see what throws heavier. Yeah. Sometimes it's a disappointment what we think is going to throw heavy.
Take some iterations for sure. I mean, I think we probably eliminated a half a dozen early on just because the performance wasn't there. Now, it doesn't mean it's not close or it won't get there. It's just they didn't make it in this first cut. So they take additional work. And that's part of the process. I think testing is kind of everyone's least favorite thing. But it's obviously important. And we're releasing a product that you guys are going to use in your own products. That is a very important process. But the brainstorming is fun to me. Name and images are fun to me. Yeah. I like bringing it all together and seeing that final product. The bottles themselves, everything, it just looks really, really good. So we've been very happy with how everything turned out. Again, we'd love your feedback in the comments of this video. If you like this video or the fragrance oils, you've had a chance to try them or check out the website, give this video a thumbs up as well. Appreciate all you guys, and we'll see you next time.
Just ask again.
Okay.
Perfect.
Dude.
Too pretty.
I like too pretty.
Yeah. What was the question again? To it. What was I going to say? I forgot already.
You're fine. You don't have to.
I forgot. Okay. This is really hard.
That's right. We'll do bloopers.
This is really hard.
I know.
How
Trust
do you
me.
do this?
Just keep going.
Okay. All right. Sorry, gotta fix my face.